Donald Trump's vice presidential nominee, J.D. Vance, visited the border today for a photo op, which is weird since he recently voted to block a bipartisan border security bill in the Senate at Donald Trump's request. Ignoring that recent record, J.D. Vance attacked Vice President Harris with the false claim that she was America's border czar, a role she never had, while touting hardline immigration policies like mass deportations that he and Donald Trump would enact as, quote, common sense. We'll get a reality check with the mayor of a border town in Cochise County, Arizona, where J.D. Vance was today in just a moment. But of course, reporters wanted to know how J.D. Vance, the father of 3 biracial children, felt about Donald Trump's false claim that Kamala Harris, quote, turned black. Just listen to how he responded.
What I believe is that Kamala Harris is a chameleon. We just saw her in Georgia a couple of days ago, a person who spent a lot of her life in Canada putting on a Southern accent in front of Georgia. Trump's point is that she is a chameleon. She presents a different face depending on the audience she speaks to.
Yeah. Also, he clearly doesn't know black people. This is what Trump said.
I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black? Because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn, and she became a black person.
And today, Donald Trump doubled down on those racist lies, including going back to the racist lie he told about President Obama that launched his career as a Republican, the birth certificate. Donald Trump shared a post by a far-right activist posting Harris's birth certificate and drumming up conspiracy theories about it. Donald Trump also posted this very nice family photo of Kamala Harris, suggesting that because she spent time with one side of her family, the other side must not exist. A spokesperson for Kamala Harris's campaign responded to the attacks today, quote, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are trafficking in hatred and lies to divide the American people because with no positive vision to move our country forward, all they can do is drag us back. Joining us now, Congresswoman Shontel Brown, who represents Ohio's 11th congressional district. Congresswoman Brown, thank you for coming to The Last Word. Your reaction to the escalating attacks by Trump on Vice President Harris's race?
Well, you pointed it out. This is nothing new. This is something we saw when President Obama was in office. And so zebras don't change their stripes and leopards don't change their spots. So we shouldn't really be surprised. And it's not surprising to me that he is incapable of comprehending that 2 things can exist at the same time. And so that is not a surprise. Perhaps he should take a cognitive test to make sure that he is even capable to be running for such an office. But I think he has proven multiple times that he is unfit, unhinged, radical, racist, and wrong on so many levels. And so he just continues to show who he truly is to the American people and the world when he is presented with such opportunities for us to see the foolishness that will fall out of his mouth when given a chance.
The foolishness. You know, this Republican ticket is a big tent for racism and sexism. And J.D. Vance did not disavow his awful comments about, quote, childless cat ladies. Why is J.D. Vance obsessed with women's reproductive choices? And he says he's pro-family, but what about supportive policies that actually help American families?
Well, given his relationships with couches, I could understand why he might have this fixation against women. But what I would say is that his anti-women and war approach is really, truly devastating. And they tested this out in Ohio last year with the Issue 1 campaign, where we were fighting to protect women's rights to make their own healthcare decisions. And the evangelist of Trump's Project 2025, J.D. Vance, supports having a national abortion ban. And I can't help but to remind the folks every time. I'm from Ohio, where we had a 10-year-old rape victim who had to leave the state because of the overturning of Roe v. Wade before we were able to enshrine the right for women to protect, to have their own rights to make their own healthcare decisions enshrined in our Constitution last year. I am from the state of Ohio, where Brittany Watts, a young Black woman who had a miscarriage in her bathroom, and because the fetus got stuck in the toilet, they were going to charge her with abuse of a corpse. Now, this is the criminalization that we can expect if these people get their hands back on the power switch. And so it's important that we recognize that it's not just about defeating Donald Trump, JD Vance, and their Project 2025, but it's about protecting our rights as women and really protecting our future and the freedom of this country. Too many freedoms that sometimes people take for granted.
Mm-hmm. Congresswoman, one more question for you. You're from Ohio. J.D. Vance is from Ohio. What can you tell us about J.D. Vance we might not already know?
Well, I think you've got a chance to see that J.D. Vance and the people of Ohio, much like the Republican Party, are experiencing buyer's remorse. This is a man who, as he attempted to call our vice president a chameleon, has politically twisted himself into a pretzel and a knot to cater for the audience of one, and that is the MAGA manipulator of Mar-a-Lago. He had the one qualification that the Donald J. Trump was looking for, and that was someone who would pledge their allegiance to him and only him. So this is a person who is not interested in serving the public, but really serving himself, and they are relentless when it comes to their pursuit of power. So I would caution the American people and to believe the expression that Maya Angelou has laid out before us: believe people when they show you who they are the first time, because this is what we see. They are duplicitous in nature, diabolical when it comes to their policies, and they do not have the interests of the American people at heart. They are only in this for themselves.
You've just given me a new phrase. I'm going to steal it. MAGA manipulator of Mar-a-Lago. Congresswoman Shontel Brown of Ohio, thank you for coming to The Last Word.